Now, today I want to talk about something that quietly shapes almost every piece of communication that we have with patients. There are two questions that patients need answered before they're ready to hear it. And if those questions aren't answered first, even the most beautiful of explanations of chiropractic will not land. Now, let me give you a really simple example. I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street and you see somebody standing on the corner, up on a little soapbox. They're passionately preaching about religion. They're explaining their beliefs with absolute conviction. But what do most of us do in this situation? We walk right past. And it's not because we don't believe what they're saying. It's because two things are missing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing You Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your impact, your income, and your enjoyment in practice too. Now, today I want to talk about something that quietly shapes almost every piece of communication that we have with patients. Now, one thing that I've noticed over the years is that chiropractors, we're always searching for better ways to explain chiropractic. We go to seminars, we listen to great speakers, and when someone stands up and delivers a beautiful explanation of chiropractic, the nervous system, the power of the adjustment, the body's innate intelligence, we think to ourselves, that's it. That's the way that I need to explain chiropractic. That's what's holding me back from practice growth. So we go back into our practice determined to become a more eloquent communicator. But here's the thing that we often miss. When we're sitting in that audience at a chiropractic conference, the explanation lands so well because we already believe it, okay? We already have years of context around chiropractic. We already understand the philosophy. We already trust the person speaking. And because of that, when they talk about the nervous system, the power of the adjustment, it resonates immediately, okay? But our patients don't have that same context, okay? And this is where the disconnect happens. So chiropractors spend an enormous energy trying to be perfect or to create the perfect explanation of chiropractic, when the real issue isn't the explanation at all, okay? The real issue is that there are two questions that patients need answered before they're ready to hear it, okay? And if those questions aren't answered first, even the most beautiful of explanations of chiropractic will not land. Now, let me give you a really simple example. I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street and you see somebody standing on the corner, up on a little soapbox, okay? They're passionately preaching about religion. They're explaining their beliefs with absolute conviction. The certainty they have, there's a truth in what they're talking about as well. They're telling everybody that walks past that they have the answer, okay? Now, maybe even they're doing a pretty damn good job explaining it, but what do most of us do in this situation? We walk right past. We barely slow down. And it's not because we don't believe what they're saying, okay? And it's not even necessarily that they're wrong, okay? It's because two things are missing. Now, the first thing is that there's no trust, okay? They're a complete stranger. Why would we trust them with something that's so damn important? And the second thing is there's no specificity, okay? They're not speaking to you. They're just broadcasting a message to anyone who happens to walk by, okay? There's no sense that they understand your life, your struggles, and your situation. So even if they do have a powerful message, what ends up happening is it doesn't land. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many of us as chiropractors are accidentally doing exactly the same thing in our marketing and our communication with our patients. We metaphorically stand on our own soapboxes, on our websites, on social media, and sometimes in our communication with patients. And we broadcast messages about chiropractic to the world. We explain how chiropractic helps the nervous system. We explain the benefits of care. We explain the power of an adjustment. And the mistake we're making is that we're jumping straight to the solution. And when we do that, we skip over the two questions that the brain of our patients and our prospective patients is silently asking first. Now, when someone is listening to you, whether on your website or on social media or sitting across from you in your practice, their brain is silently asking three questions, okay? Now, the first question is this, do you understand me? The second question is, do I trust you? And the third question is, can you help me? Now, most of us as chiropractors start with answering question number 3, okay? That's what the person was doing on the soapbox on the corner. They were answering the question is, can I help you? And we do this by explaining that we can help. But if the first 2 questions haven't already been answered, the brain isn't ready to hear the solution, okay? If we don't answer those first 2 questions first, our solution will not land, okay? Now, let me share a little of the psychology behind these questions. The brain, our patient's brain, is always scanning for safety before it accepts influence. Before someone can accept advice, guidance, or a solution, their nervous system wants to know 2 things. Am I understood? And is this person safe to trust? Now, psychologists have actually studied what happens when someone jumps too quickly into a solution. And there's a term for this resistance that people feel when someone is trying to persuade them before understanding them, okay? It's called psychological reactance, okay? And research shows that when communication evokes empathy, when people feel understood, that resistance drops, okay? And people become far more open to guidance. They become far more open to starting chiropractic care. In other words, when people feel understood first, their nervous system relaxes, okay? And it becomes more receptive to new ideas. Now, the second thing that the brain evaluates is the person delivering the message. And research, again, in social neuroscience shows that persuasion is strongly influenced not just by the message itself, okay, that is how eloquently you're communicating chiropractic, but by the perceived trustworthiness and relevance of the communicator, okay? So in simple terms, the brain is constantly asking, is this someone I trust? Is this someone relevant to me? Now, only once those questions are answered does the brain start evaluating the recommendation, okay? Now, you could think about this sequence as connection, confidence, and commitment, or simply understanding, trust, and then help, okay? The key point to remember here is that the order matters. So question number 1 we want to be answering is, do you understand me? Okay, so before people care about what you know, they want to feel seen. They want to know that you understand their frustrations, their fears. They want you to know that you understand what they've already tried, what life is like dealing with an issue that is affecting the family or their well-being. Now, psychology research consistently shows that when people feel understood, their resistance to influence drops, okay, and their openness to guidance really increases, okay? So how is it that we actually create this feeling? Now, again, it's not about being clever with words. It's not about having the best explanation of chiropractic. It's about showing the patient that you genuinely understand their experience. Now, here's 6 practical ways to create a feeling of being understood. The first is to make sure that you're using the patient's language, okay? One of the fastest ways to create connection is to use the same words that your patients use, not clinical language, but use their language. For example, our parents are rarely saying, I'm concerned about my child's nervous system regulation. Okay, that unless somebody's incredibly educated about chiropractic. Instead, they're coming in and saying things like this: my baby's not sleeping. She's constantly unsettled. We feel like we've tried everything, or he's always getting sick. Now, when people hear their own language reflected back to them, the brain immediately thinks, this person gets me. Okay, let me say that again. When people hear their own language reflected back to them, the brain immediately thinks, this person gets me. Now, the second thing you can do is name their frustrations. Patients often feel relief simply when somebody acknowledges how frustrating their situation has been, okay? And again, you can do this by simply saying something like this: a lot of parents who come in here feel exhausted because they've been trying everything to help their child sleep and nothing seems to work. Or maybe something like this: many people who find us have been dealing with stress or tension in their body for years, and they just want to feel like themselves again. When somebody hears their frustration acknowledged, their nervous system relaxes and they feel seen. And this is important in the journey of them having understood or being able to understand chiropractic. Now, the third thing that we need to do is that we need to address the fears they haven't said out loud. Now, often our patients carry concerns they haven't yet expressed, and maybe they haven't even formally understood it, but it's kind of going on as a background conversation. Parents are thinking things like this: is something actually wrong with my child? Is this going to affect their development? Am I a bad parent? Are we missing something important? Okay. Adults might be thinking, is my body breaking down? Am I getting worse? Am I ever going to be able to get away from this? Now, when we speak to those fears directly, patients feel deeply understood. For example, one of the things parents often worry about at this stage is whether their child is going to keep struggling with the sleeping or being unsettled. Okay, so when we say that to them, again, we just reflect back to them. One of the things that parents often worry about at this stage is whether their child is going to keep struggling with sleep or will they eventually settle, okay? That one sentence, when you reflect that back to them, when you bring to the surface the underlying frustration, it creates enormous amounts of trust. The fourth thing that you can do is you can show that you understand the impact on their life, okay? So health challenges are rarely just about the symptoms. They affect our practice members' daily lives. Parents feel exhausted. Families might feel stressed. Someone might feel like they don't have the energy that they used to. Now, when you recognize the impact on someone's life, patients feel deeply understood, okay? We could say something like this, for example: when your child isn't sleeping well, often the whole household feels it. Or when the nervous system is under constant stress, it can affect everything from your sleep to your focus to your energy. Now, you're not just hearing the symptom when you say these statements as well, you're understanding the person behind the entire problem. Now, the fifth thing that you can do is that you should summarize what you've heard. One of the most powerful communication tools is simply reflecting back what the patient told you. So, for example, if I'm hearing you correctly, your baby's been unsettled now for several months. Sleep has been really inconsistent and you're feeling exhausted and you just want some answers. When your practice members hear their story summarized accurately, they feel deeply understood, okay? Now, the sixth thing that you should be doing if you want your practice members to feel understood is asking curious follow-up questions. Research from Harvard Business School has shown that when people ask thoughtful follow-up questions in their conversations, okay, they're constantly rated as more likable and more understanding. In other words, simply asking good questions signals genuine interest. Questions just like this: when did you first start noticing this? How has this been affecting your family? What have you already tried so far? These type of questions tell the brain this person actually cares about understanding me, okay? So again, let's look at some other examples as well. I want this to be practically and able to be kind of take home ready for you as well. So on your website, instead of opening with technical explanations about chiropractic, speak directly to the experience that families are having, okay? Something like this: if your baby isn't sleeping well, if your child seems constantly unsettled, or if you're feeling like you've tried everything and nothing is working, you're not alone. Many families find us after months of searching for answers. Now, the parent who reads this is going to feel understood before chiropractic is ever needed to be mentioned. It opens them up to hearing chiropractic. And again, a social media, instead of starting off with information about the nervous system, i.e. in today's video, I'm going to share 3 benefits of chiropractic care, start with the lived experience. You might say something like this: hey, ever feel like your child isn't fully settling, like their body is always on the edge? Now, when you say something like this, what you're doing is you're entering the patient's world first. So here's an in-office example when you're communicating one-to-one with your patients, perhaps a new patient. A very simple way to help patients feel understood is to start by using the information that they've already given you. Instead of ignoring the intake form and asking what brings you in today, remember, the patient has just spent time writing all of that down. So the first thing you can do is show that you've actually read it, okay? highlight a few key points from their form, and repeat back to them using their own words. So, for example, something like this. I see here that little Abby isn't sleeping well. She's constantly unsettled. She's dealing with reflux. Feeding has been difficult, and the doctors have told you that it's colic and it will likely pass with time. And then simply say this. Tell me more about that. In that moment, several powerful things are happening. The parent firstly realizes that you took the time to read what they wrote. They feel seen, they feel heard, and the conversation starts from a place of understanding instead of interrogation. A very simple way to help parents feel understood is to start by using the information that they have already given you, okay? So here's a key insight to remember. Understanding isn't demonstrated by explaining chiropractic well. It's demonstrated by showing the patient that you understand them. Now let's move on to question number 2, and this is, do I trust you? Because once someone feels understood, their brain then asks the second question is, can I trust you? Now, trust is not built on information alone. It's built through signals that the brain recognizes and indicators of safety and credibility. Now, one of the most influential researchers on persuasion psychology is Robert Cialdini, and he's author of a book called Influence. If you haven't read it, you should read it as well. Now, Cialdini identified several principles that explain why people trust some individuals and some messengers. For chiropractors, there are 3 principles that show up constantly when we're wanting to build trust with patients, okay? These we'll refer to as the 3 building blocks of trust. The first is authority, okay? Now, people trust those people who demonstrate expertise, not arrogance, okay? They want to see clear competence. Now, this might look like you explaining things clearly, demonstrating knowledge, sharing your experience, educating patients in a calm and confident way. On your website, this might include your experience, your training, explaining your philosophy of care, outlining your clinical process, okay? These aren't about bragging. They're signals that tell the brain that this person knows what they're doing. The second one that we should be using is social proof. Humans are wired to look at what other people are doing when making decisions, and trust grows when people see evidence that others have already trusted you, okay? In practice, this could look like patient testimonials, patient stories. It could look like reviews. It looks like examples of patient progress. When people see others benefiting from your care, the brain naturally thinks, maybe this could work for me too. The third thing that builds trust is what Cialdini refers to as liking, okay? People trust people they feel connected to, which means trust grows when patients feel like you genuinely care, you listen carefully, you communicate clearly, you're relatable, and you're human, okay? This is why storytelling works so well in communication, and it's why simply being present and attentive in practice builds enormous amounts of trust, okay? So if you want to evaluate your communication, ask yourself this. Do patients see clear signs of my expertise? Do they see evidence that other people trust and benefit from my care? And do they feel a genuine human connection with me, okay? Trust is not built on one big moment. It's built through dozens of small signals. And when those signals are present and a patient feels understood, the nervous system relaxes, okay? And now they're ready for the third question. And this is, can you help me? Only now is the brain ready for the solution, okay? And this is where we as chiropractors often start, okay? But it's where we should finish. Once a patient feels understood and trusts you, okay, your recommendations are going to land very differently. Instead of sounding like persuasion, they sound like guidance, okay? Now, when you explain how chiropractic works, what their care plan will look like, what progress might look like, the patient is not going to be resistant. They're going to be leaning in as well. So why is it that we as chiropractors often get this wrong, okay? We get it wrong because we deeply care about helping people. So we naturally start with the solution. But great communicators start with connection because connection opens the door to trust and trust opens the door to help. Now, here's some practical reflections for you as well. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, does my website show patients that I understand them? Okay. Does my communication build trust? Or do I jump too quickly into explaining how I can help? Now, when you answer these questions in the right order, your message is going to become significantly more powerful. All right, so let's bring this to a close. It's important to remember that people rarely reject solutions. They reject solutions, though, from people that they don't yet understand or trust. Okay, let me say that again. People, your patients, your community rarely reject solutions. Chiropractic makes sense, folks, but they do reject solutions from people they don't yet understood or don't yet feel understood by or trust. So the next time that you're communicating, whether it's online, whether it's in practice, remember the hidden conversation that's going on inside your patient's mind. Do you understand me? Do I trust you? And can you help me? Answer those questions in that order and everything will change. All right. As always, folks, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.